You wake up at 3:47 a.m. Something's wrong. The bed feels different, colder. You reach across to the other side. Empty. Your husband isn't there. You call his name. Nothing. You check the bathroom. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. His phone is on the nightstand. His wallet. His keys. Everything he owns is here, except him. You call him. The phone rings on the nightstand. You're confused, angry, then terrified. You go to the window. The street is chaos. Cars crashed into poles. A taxi stopped in the middle of the intersection. Door open. No driver. You hear screaming. Distant. Everywhere you check your phone. 53 missed calls. Your mum, your sister, your friends. All women. You call your mother back. She's hysterical. He's gone. Your father's gone. I woke up and he wasn't there. His clothes are on the floor, like he vanished. You turn on the TV. Every channel is the same. Emergency broadcasts. Panicked anchors trying to understand what's happening. Then you see it. A news anchor, female, sitting alone at the desk. She's crying. We're receiving reports from across the globe. Every man, every single male human has disappeared simultaneously. We don't know how, we don't know why, but they're gone. You look around your home. Your son's room. Empty. His bed still warm. His shoes by the door. But he's gone. Your 8-year-old boy vanished. You collapse. This isn't possible. But it's happening. Half the human population erased in an instant. No bodies, no explanation. Just absence. Pure, incomprehensible absence. I am the simulator, and I'm about to show you what happens when half of humanity disappears overnight. Not the half you expected. Not the half anyone prepared for. The half that built the infrastructure, that operates the power grid, that keeps the machines running. You think society would adapt. You think women would simply take over the roles. You're about to discover how catastrophically wrong that assumption is. The first morning is confusion. Millions of women waking up to empty beds, empty homes, sons and fathers and brothers and husbands simply gone. The panic is immediate. Phones overwhelmed. Emergency services flooded with calls, but half the operators are gone. The male dispatchers, the male police officers, the male paramedics. Response times triple immediately, then quadruple, then stop entirely in some cities. There aren't enough people to respond. The morning commute becomes a nightmare. Thousands of vehicles, trucks, buses, trains suddenly driverless. A semi-truck on the highway. Driver vanished mid-route. Barrels through traffic at 70 miles per hour until it crashes into a bridge support. 43 people die. It's happening everywhere. Pilots disappearing mid-flight. 78 commercial aircraft fall from the sky in the first 6 hours. Ships at sea. Captains gone. Drift without navigation. A cargo vessel carrying oil collides with a coast off Japan. The spill is catastrophic. No one comes to contain it. Because the response teams were 90% male, the power starts flickering by noon. Not everywhere, but in sectors. Major cities experience rolling blackouts. Why? Because 74% of electrical engineers are male. 89% of power plant operators are male. The systems are complex. The few women who know how to operate them are overwhelmed, trying to cover 10 positions at once. They can't. By evening, 3 major grids fail. New York goes dark. Snow follows Mumbai. Hospitals switch to backup generators, but those generators need maintenance, and the maintenance crew is gone within 24 hours. 6 hospitals lose power completely. Patients on ventilators, newborns in incubators, they die in the dark. Not because anyone wanted them to, because the infrastructure that kept them alive required expertise that vanished overnight. The women try, they follow manuals, call each other, share what they know, but you can't learn a decade of specialized knowledge in a day. The systems are too complex, and they're failing. Construction sites are frozen. Cranes sit motionless. Operators vanished mid-lift. A crane in Dubai collapses because no one knows how to safely lower the load. It crashes through a residential building. 70 people dead. Bridges under construction are abandoned, mid-built, roads half-paved. The physical world was being built by men, not exclusively, but overwhelmingly. 96% of construction workers were male. The buildings, the bridges, the infrastructure, everyone depends on it's not being maintained. It's not being finished. It's just stopping. And in stopping, it's starting to fall apart. A dam in China, requiring constant monitoring and adjustment, begins to overflow. The female engineers do everything they can, but there were 4 people managing a system designed for 20. The dam breaks. 14 towns downstream are wiped out. 30,000 people drown. The simulator watches. This is the first day. This is just the beginning. Grocery stores are empty by the second day. Not because food disappeared, because the supply chain did. 92% of truck drivers were male. The food is still on farms, still in warehouses, but it's not moving. The trucks sit in packing lots, keys inside, no one trained to drive them. Women attempt to take over. Some succeed, but some isn't enough when you need thousands of deliveries happening simultaneously across continents. The shelves empty. The panic buying accelerates the collapse. Within 72 hours, major cities have no food distribution. People start hoarding, then looting. The police try to respond, but 68% of police officers were male. The remaining force is stretched impossibly thin. Crime isn't increasing because people are evil. It's increasing because desperation has set in and there's no one to maintain order. Pharmacies are ransacked. Not for drugs to sell, for insulin, for heart medication, for the prescriptions that keep people alive. Because the pharmaceutical supply chain, like everything else, has collapsed. 1 week in, the realization sets in. This isn't temporary. The men aren't coming back. Governments try to organize emergency protocols, martial law in some regions, but governments themselves are collapsing. 79% of legislators globally were male. Entire branches of government are gone. The women remaining try to hold things together, but they're operating systems designed for 10 times more people. Every decision is triage. Every choice is between bad and catastrophic. The President of the United States female addresses the nation. She looks exhausted. "Hollow, we are doing everything we can," she says, but everyone watching knows it's not enough. It can't be. The systems are too big, too complex, too dependent on the people who are gone. The military is crippled. 84% of active military personnel were male. Bases are operating at 16% capacity. Defense systems are failing. Not because of attack, because there's no one to maintain them. Nuclear weapons facilities, requiring constant oversight, are being abandoned. Protocols exist for securing them, but those protocols assumed you'd have staff. You don't. For facilities go into emergency lockdown. No one can access them. No one knows if they're stable. The world is armed with nuclear weapons no one can control. Some countries propose disarmament. Others hoard what weapons remain. Tensions rise. Borders close. The international cooperation that might have saved civilization fractures under the weight of fear and scarcity. Water treatment plants are failing. 71% of water treatment specialists were male. The women working desperately to keep them operational are doing everything they can, but the systems are breaking down faster than they can repair them. A plant in Los Angeles fails completely. 4 million people without clean water. Cholera breaks out within a week. The hospital's already overwhelmed. Already operating in the dark, can't handle the surge. Doctors and nurses are working 48-hour shifts. They're collapsing from exhaustion. People die in waiting rooms. Not from cholera, from treatable conditions that can't be treated because there's no capacity left. The medical system wasn't designed to lose half its workforce overnight. 64% of surgeons were male. 57% of anesthesiologists gone. Surgeries that would have saved lives are cancelled, not because anyone wants to cancel them, because there's literally no one available to perform them. Technology is breaking. The internet is still operational for now, but server farms require maintenance. 78% of IT infrastructure specialists were male. Data centers are overheating. Systems are going offline. First the small platforms, then the major ones. Google has regional outages. Amazon's servers crash in North America. Facebook goes dark in Europe. The digital infrastructure that connected the world is fragmenting, and with it, the ability to coordinate, to share information, to organize a response. Communication is becoming localized again. Fragmented towns are isolated. Cities are islands. The global network that humanity built over decades is unraveling in weeks. Women with technical expertise are trying desperately to hold it together, but there aren't enough of them, and the systems are too vast, too interconnected. When one piece fails, it takes 10 others with it. Cascading failures, everywhere, all at once. The psychological toll is devastating. Every woman on earth has lost someone. Fathers, sons, husbands, brothers, friends. The grief is universal, absolute. There's no escape from it. Support systems are gone. Therapists, 52% male, vanished. The survivors are trying to counsel each other, but they're drowning in their own trauma. Suicide rates spike. Not slowly, immediately. Within 2 weeks, suicide becomes the leading cause of death globally. More than starvation, more than violence, more than infrastructure collapse. Women are choosing to leave because the world they're living in is unrecognizable, unbearable. A mother in Berlin finds her daughter, 15 years old, hanging in her room. A note on the bed. "I can't live in a world without him." The him is her younger brother, 8 years old, gone. The mother screams, but there's no one to hear. Everyone is screaming, the whole world is screaming, and no one is listening because everyone is lost in their own grief. 1 month later, society is unrecognizable. Functional cities are now just a handful. The rest are collapsing into chaos or have been abandoned entirely. Power is intermittent even in the best areas. Running water is a luxury. Food is rationed. Violence is constant, not organized war-desperate survival. Women are forming communities, trying to protect resources, but those communities are small, isolated, distrustful of outsiders. The global civilization that spanned continents has fractured into thousands of tiny enclaves barely holding on. Some communities are thriving, organized, disciplined, sharing resources. Others are hellscapes, warlords emerging. Yes, female warlords. Power vacuums don't care about gender. The cruelest, most ruthless people rise to the top, and they rule through violence because that's all that's left. The oil refineries are shutting down. 94% of petroleum engineers were male. The fuel that powers everything, trucks, generators, planes, ships, is running out, not because the oil is gone, because no one can refine it. Reserves are being used up. When they're empty, they won't be refilled. Transportation as it existed is ending. Planes are already grounded. Ships are docked permanently. Trucks are being abandoned as fuel becomes impossible to find. The world is shrinking fast. Cities that depended on imported food are starving. Islands that relied on supply ships are isolated completely. The global economy, already dead, is now decomposing, and the smell is everywhere. Reproduction has become the existential crisis no one wants to talk about but everyone is thinking about. There are no men, which means no natural conception. Sperm banks exist, but those reserves are finite. Enough for maybe 10,000 pregnancies, maybe. And then what? Humanity faces extinction, not in centuries, in decades. Some scientists propose cloning, parthenogenesis, genetic engineering. But the labs that could do that research are closed. The scientists, 73% male, are gone. The few remaining are trying, but they're working in makeshift conditions with failing equipment and no funding because money doesn't mean anything anymore. One lab in Sweden announces a breakthrough. They've successfully induced parthenogenesis in human cells, but the embryo dies after 11 days. They try again. Same result. The technology isn't there, and there's no time to develop it. Every day more women die, more knowledge is lost, more hope evaporates. Children are the most devastated. An entire generation has lost their fathers and brothers. Schools are closed, not officially, but practically. There aren't enough teachers. 62% were male. The children sit at home with traumatized mothers who are trying to find food, maintain shelter, stay alive. Education has stopped. Childhood has stopped. A 9-year-old girl in London hasn't spoken since her father disappeared. She sits by the window every day waiting for him to come home. Her mother tries to explain. He's not coming back. The girl doesn't respond. She just waits. There are millions of children like her, silent, waiting, breaking an entire generation psychologically destroyed before they had a chance to live. The simulator observes, the species isn't dying from lack of resources, it's dying from broken hearts. 6 months later, the collapse is complete. Modern civilization is over. The power grids are dead. The internet is gone. Cities are graveyards. Most of humanity has retreated to rural areas where survival is at least theoretically possible. Farming, hunting, gathering, pre-industrial existence. But even that is harder than expected. Because industrial agriculture, the thing that fed billions, was operated overwhelmingly by men. The machinery sits rusting in fields. No one knows how to repair it. Even if they did, there's no fuel. Farming is being done by hand now, with tools scavenged from abandoned stores. The yield is a fraction of what it was. Starvation is everywhere. Not dramatic. Slow. A woman in Iowa plants seeds in the spring, tends them all summer, harvests in the fall. She gets enough food to survive winter. Barely. Next year she'll do it again, if she lives that long. This is life now. Subsistence, survival, no future. Just the next day, and the day after. Until there aren't any more days, the population is collapsing. Not from violence, from attrition. Women are dying from preventable causes, infections, injuries, childbirth, complications. The ones that survive pregnancy are dying during labor because there are no hospitals, no surgeons, no equipment. The global population was 8 billion. 6 months later, it's down to 3 billion. The death rate isn't slowing, it's accelerating. Because the infrastructure that kept people alive, medicine, clean water, food distribution, shelter is gone, and it's not coming back. Some communities are stable, have doctors, engineers, builders. They'll survive longer, maybe decades, but eventually they'll die too. Because the gene pool is too small. Because the technology required to sustain a population beyond a few thousand doesn't exist anymore. Because humanity has been reduced to scattered tribes with no way to reconnect. The last scientists are trying. A group of women in Geneva have gathered in an abandoned lab. They're attempting to preserve human knowledge. They've written everything down. Medicine, engineering, agriculture, physics, mathematics. They've created a library, physical books, because digital storage is dead. They're hoping that future generations, if there are any, will find it, will rebuild. But they're not optimistic. One of them, a physicist, sits in the dim candlelight, writing in a journal. We built a world so complex that it required billions of people to operate. When half of them disappeared, the system collapsed. Not because men were superior, but because the system was too interdependent. Too fragile. We never had a backup plan for losing half the species. And now we're paying for that arrogance with extinction. A woman in Tokyo is the last person in the city. Everyone else is dead or gone. She walks through empty streets, past abandoned cars, past buildings that are starting to crumble. She's looking for food, water, anything. She finds a convenience store, untouched. The shelves are still full. She cries, not from relief, from the absurdity. All this food, preserved perfectly, while billions starved because the trucks stopped running. She takes what she can carry, leaves the rest, it'll rot. No one else is coming. She's alone completely. She walks to the edge of the city, looks back at the skyline. Silent, dead. She whispers, "We weren't ready. We thought we were invincible. We were wrong." Then she walks into the forest. She doesn't know where she's going, just away. Away from the ruins. Away from the memories. Away from the species that built skyscrapers but couldn't survive without half of itself. 1 year later, the simulator watches the remnants of humanity scattered across the planet. Small groups, isolated, struggling. Some will survive a generation, maybe 2, but extinction is inevitable. Not because women couldn't lead, not because they couldn't adapt, but because modern civilization required 8 billion people to function. And when you lose half overnight, the system doesn't downsize, it collapses. The power grids weren't run by men because of patriarchy. They were run by men because 80% of electrical engineers were men. When they disappeared, the knowledge disappeared, the experience, the trained instinct that keeps complex systems operational. You can't replace a decade of expertise with a manual. Not fast enough. Not when everything is failing simultaneously. The irony is brutal. Humanity spent centuries building a world of staggering complexity. Cities with millions of people, supply chains spanning continents, technology connecting billions, all of it dependent on specialization, division of labor, billions of people each doing their small part to keep the machine running. But the machine wasn't designed with redundancy. It was designed with efficiency. And when half the operators vanished, efficiency became fragility. The machine stopped. And when it stopped, civilization stopped. The simulator delivers its final observation. You think the question was, what if all men disappeared? But that was never the question. The real question was, can a species survive the sudden loss of half its population? And the answer is no. Not a species that built its survival on complexity. Not a species that forgot how to live without the infrastructure it created. The collapse wasn't about gender. It was about interdependence. Humanity wasn't destroyed by the absence of men. It was destroyed by the absence of redundancy. By the hubris of believing the system could never fail. A mother and daughter sit by a fire in what used to be Kansas. They're the last two people for 100 miles. The mother is teaching her daughter how to hunt, how to plant, how to survive without electricity, without medicine, without anything except what she can make with her hands. The daughter asks, will it always be like this? The mother doesn't answer, because the honest answer is, it'll be like this until you die. And then there won't be anyone left to ask. Here's your final question. If half of humanity disappeared tomorrow, regardless of which half, would civilization survive? Or would we discover that everything we built was more fragile than we ever admitted? Drop your answer below. If this simulation showed you that complexity without redundancy is just a slow-motion catastrophe, leave a like and subscribe. Now go watch the previous simulation. What if all millionaires woke up poor in one single day? It shows you another way humanity destroys itself by removing a single piece of the machine. Welcome to the simulator, where you learn that interdependence isn't weakness. It's the only thing that keeps 8 billion people alive.